One of the criticisms against opposition leader Pierre Poilievre is that he hasn't been out there enough. He hasn't left the Canadian borders. He hasn't met with other world leaders. But now that is exactly what Poilievre is doing. He's branching out and he is on a bit of a tour to other countries to listen, to hear, and then to speak to Canadians about what his plan would be for the future of Canada. Hello, everyone. I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Warren Kinsella and Brian Lilley. Okay, Warren. So I spelled out some of the criticism. Poilievre is now out there, as is Mark Carney, the Prime Minister. We'll get to that in a moment. But Poilievre is out there. He's going to different countries. He's meeting with other world leaders. Is this in an ability to show I can be prime ministerial, I can lead a nation? What is the upside of all of this for Poilievre?
Well, as you guys know, I'm a mean person, but I'm not going to be mean. And I've been mean to Pierre Poilievre. I think he's doing exactly what guys like me said he should be doing, which is looking prime ministerial and traveling internationally and not crapping on Canada in the way that Jamil Jawani did. Like, he is looking good. He's laughing. He's using self-deprecating humor, like in that Mansbridge podcast. He's doing this British stuff that he's doing. Like, to me, he is looking good. The thing I don't understand is why it's not manifesting itself in better numbers for him. I know the horse race numbers are what they are. I don't think it's that dramatic, a gap between the Liberals as a political choice and the Tories as a political choice. The gap that's enormous is between Carney and Poilievre. And all of us have been critical, for example, of Carney over Iran, trying to figure out what his position is. He's not being hurt by it, which I find mystifying. And Poilievre's doing all the right things, and he's not getting credit for it. So we're in this kind of weird moment. But the one thing I'll say, as a mean guy, Pierre Poilievre, what you're doing the right thing. You're looking like a prime minister, and that's the job.
Okay, Brian. So there's about 4 or 5 polls out there in the last week or so, and the party numbers show on average about an 8-point lead for the Liberals. But the important point being, who do you trust as being prime minister? Well, right now it's obvious that people will say Carney because he's in that job, he's in that role, and he's garnered some positive international headlines, which then translates and resonates in Canada. But we have this interesting situation happening now with Iran and the inconsistency by which Mark Carney has presented Canada's position, and that I don't think has really resonated in the households of Canada yet, but it may. And I'm wondering from your perspective, is there stuff that Poilievre is doing and saying on these international trips that will ultimately resonate here back at home?
Perhaps. Let me give you the couple of the poll numbers first. So a Leger poll for Post Media, which owns the Toronto Sun, shows a 14-point lead for the Liberals. Liaison Strategies, a 10-point lead. Nanos, 10 points. Ipsos, 8. Abacus, 6. 338 Canada, which is the polling aggregator, says it's about an 8-point lead. Polls are snapshots in time. They are rear view mirrors. Doesn't matter how recent the poll is, it was taken a few days ago. So anything to do with Iran isn't showing up yet. But I'll say this, I don't expect Mark Carney's vacillating on Iran to actually hurt him in the polls, because a lot of Canadians will see any criticism of what's happening on Iran as a criticism of Donald Trump. And if you look at the polling, Canadians don't like Donald Trump. They hate him. And so based on that, they don't like what the U.S. and Israel are doing with Iran. I think that's completely the wrong way to go. And I think if Carney had shown leadership on this, he could have brought Canadians around to saying, look, they've been killing our people. They're funding and arming Russia for its war in Ukraine. Here's why we have to do it. He's not doing that. And so I think he's playing into people's devils instead of their better angels. As for what Poilievre's doing, I agree with Warren. He's looking more prime ministerial. His interview with Peter Mansbridge, I haven't watched it yet. I've got it bookmarked to go back and look at it. He's on with Mansbridge for an hour. I've interviewed Poilievre a lot. I don't think we've ever done a full hour-long interview, maybe 45 minutes around there. He's on with him for a full hour. And at the end, he says to him, he refers to Mansbridge as Mr. Mansbridge. And he said, oh, don't call me that. I'm just Peter. And he said, well, you called me Mr. Poilievre, so I wasn't sure. And he makes this crack. He says, well, you're the leader of the opposition. And Poilievre says, it's the worst damn job in the country. And they have a laugh about it. That sort of thing is humanizing. The speech to the Margaret Thatcher lecture in London was all about free market economics, but done in a way that is, very filled with, again, some humor, some personal insight. He went on the Trigonometry podcast, which those guys get between 400 and 800,000 views on all of their podcast episodes. And that a good chunk of them are going to be in North America and in Canada. So he's reaching different audiences. He's talking in different ways. John Ivison from National Post, who's not been, he's not a Poilievre cheerleader, reacted to his video that he did at Runnymede about the origins of the Magna Carta and it having its ongoing impact in Canada. He said, if politics doesn't work out, this guy could be doing popular history videos. This is so good. All of these little things, showing him in a way that many Canadians haven't seen him, will help, but they're not going to show up in the polling for a while. Remember, it was about a week after Mark Carney's Davos speech that the first Leger poll came out showing a big lead. And I said, this is either an outlier or the beginning of a trend. It's turned into a trend. Do those things turn around? Well, we're not going to see it in the polling now from what each leader's doing on their tours, but talk again in 3 weeks and maybe we will.
Okay, Warren, there's a lot of other interesting things happening in the political world. Let's talk about the NDP, even though we're loath to do it. Their leadership campaign, their contenders just seem batshit crazy to me. It doesn't seem to be getting a lot of traction. I'm on one, of course, because I'm in the media. I'm on the mail serve for the various candidates and their leadership campaigns, and I get their press releases and I read them, and I just, who are they talking to in this country? If it's Lewis or the other one, I mean, I don't know what subsect of Canada the NDP is talking to right now, at least the leadership campaigns.
I think they're talking to their base. Like all of us, we're political commentators and we always say you've got to reach out. It's the Brian Lilley, axiom. Politics is all about addition, not subtraction.
Mhm.
So that means reaching out beyond your base. But the problem is the NDP base during the election last April shrunk to historically low numbers. So to me, it makes sense that they're reaching out to their base. And Carney is creating opportunity for them, whether it's on the war in Iran or Trump's creating opportunity for them or austerity programs, Carney cutting the public service, all of that stuff accrues to the benefit of the NDP. But they need a leader, and they need a leader who isn't a total lunatic. I've known Avi Lewis for a long time. I think he's a very nice guy, but he's revealed himself to be very unlike his father and his grandfather, really extreme on everything from Gaza to Guelph. So, I don't know if he becomes more mature. Like all of us have seen it before. General leadership campaign, all of them say, in every party, they say kind of extreme things to get attention. So maybe that's what he's doing. I guess we'll find out if he wins the leadership. But I think right now, in their current position where they don't even have official party status, they've got to get back that part of their base that they lost to Mark Carney's Liberals. They need to do that. And I think that Carney's probably helping them out. The question remains, can the NDP capitalize on Carney moving to the right? And can they move into the space that he has vacated?
So who's that savior for them, Brian? Is it Avi Lewis? Regardless of my view on some of his wacky positions on things, there's obviously a home for this in the NDP.
Well, let me give you a quick rundown of the contenders. You've got Tony McQuail, originally from Pennsylvania, who was a bit of a draft dodger coming to Canada. during Vietnam. He's running. You've got Heather McPherson, who's the NDP MP for the Edmonton area, who seems to be running to be a politician in Gaza rather than in Canada. Avi Lewis, former TV guy, veteran journalist, commentator, son and grandson of former NDP leaders, also appears to be running to be a politician in Gaza. You've got Tennille Johnson, who's an academic student type, that type of person. And then you've got Rob Ashton, kind of a throwback to the old NDP on the labor side. He's the dock worker and former union local president. But I agree with Warren. It's tough to tell, but it looks like Avi Lewis would be the guy who appears to be breaking through. And what's his plan? Well, he really likes Zoran Mandami in New York City. So, there will be no ID requirements to vote, but you'll need 2 IDs to shovel snow because the city won't be providing snow clearing services. You'll have a nationalized grocery store chain, which you can imagine how great the bread lines will be. Ask anyone that lived behind the Iron Curtain. He wants a national cell phone company, a national internet company. He wants Canada Post to operate a bank. These are all crazy ideas that have been rejected by the people for decades, but are going to get some traction. And, so the NDP, they will not be threatening Mark Carney's tenure. That's a problem for the Conservatives. I'm thinking Audrey McLaughlin, Alexa McDonough energy coming out of this, 6-7% will be good. They're not going to be a Jack Layton or Tom Mulcair type. Tom Mulcair got the second best showing for the NDP ever, and they got rid of him in favor of 3-time loser Jagmeet Singh. So that's kind of the mentality. And as long as they're super weak, that helps the Carney Liberals. It hurts the Poilievre Conservatives. So these guys are not going to come roaring back to life.
Okay, well, our viewers are going to get frustrated with us a bit, Warren, but to talk about the city of Toronto, the center of the universe in Canada. But we have to because it is the biggest city in the country. It's a big, financial, economic driver of many things that happen. And we are saddled with probably one of the worst mayors we've ever had in a very, very long time. And that is, of course, in Olivia Chow. But we expected that the reason behind why we have Olivia Chow is John Tory after his scandal and affair in City Hall, a relationship with a staff member. He resigned. Okay, by election, we get stuck with Chow. Well, John Tory has now said, Warren, he is not going to run. So that opens up the field, so to speak, on an interesting dynamic that is playing out in the city of Toronto, where Olivia Chow could actually have genuine competition for her to lose a reelection bid.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I don't write about municipal politics for the Sun, but when the election happens in May, I'm almost certainly going to be supporting a guy named Brad Bradford, who's my counselor here in Beaches, East York, and has been a friend for a long time. And I talked him into running for politics. So, and Brad is, a center right kind of politician who represents change. The problem, and I've known Olivia and I've known John Tory for a long, long time.
You've worked for everyone we're talking about here.
I've worked for everybody. I've worked for you guys. I've worked for everybody. And they're nice people, but they have presided over a decade of the city of Toronto, which, and I apologize to all my friends in Calgary, but Toronto is important. Toronto becoming dirty and dysfunctional and dangerous. That's what happened under Olivia Chow and John Tory over the past decade. So it's time for some positive change. And I think that's what Bradford represents. There's other people out there kicking the tires. We've heard this morning that Rod Phillips, former Ontario Minister of Finance, was thinking about it. He said no.
He's not.
Mike Ford, who is a former Ontario cabinet minister also, and nephew of the premier, is thinking about it, but he's not official yet. I think he'll get massacred. And I'll say something, Anthony Furry has been a colleague of all of us, a friend of all of us. And I think Anthony should not run. He's apparently thinking about it. I think Anthony needs to take a hint and realize that people don't want him to be mayor of Toronto. And that if he runs, all he's going to do is elect Olivia
Yeah.
Chow again. So
Yeah.
I would hope he does not do that. So for the rest of the country is sick of hearing about Toronto. I get you. I'm with you. But, Toronto's got a bigger budget than most provinces. And it's almost a province unto itself. It's got lots of parliamentary seats. It's got a lot of power economically. And, it's important that the country be aware of what's happening here. And what's happening here is a real race is happening. One of our former
Yeah.
pollsters, David Coletto at Abacus, found that it's now a two-person race between Brad Bradford and Olivia Chow, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I've said that too recently, Brian. My message to anybody on the center right that's even entertaining the idea of getting in at this point: don't just let this be a head-to-head race. Maybe that's not fair to say. Maybe that's undemocratic, but it depends on how badly we want to have change in government here at the city of Toronto. But I don't find it much of a coincidence. Warren talks about sort of the decade of decline in Toronto. We had the same thing happen in as a country under Trudeau, just a decline in this country. And then if you look at what happened with the city of Toronto, even under John Tory, him saying, "I'm not going to get into it because it's going to get ugly and it's going to get dirty." Well, I mean, that was likely going to happen anyway, but I don't really think that people were going to bring up his personal salacious sex scandal that ultimately led to his resignation. I think it was going to be part of the Integrity Commissioner's report where he broke the conflict of interest law by voting for the FIFA World Cup when that girlfriend was going to work for the company that was pushing for it. I mean, I think that there was going to be other things for Tory to push back against.
Yeah, for people that don't know, what happened was John Tory got his girlfriend a job at MLSE, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which owns TFC, which was involved in the Toronto World Cup bid. Rogers also a big part of that. John Tory sits on the board of Rogers. A lot of questions around the ethics of all of that voting for the FIFA World Cup while his girlfriend's there, while he's on the board of Rogers, who's benefiting from his decision, should he have recused himself. So he's decided not to get in. Anthony Furey, I haven't spoken to him since Tory's announcement, but he's always told me that he believes there should be a primary type thing where all the anti-Chow candidates try and put their names out there between when the race officially opens, end of April, beginning of May, and by Labor Day, whoever is out in front runs. Bradford clearly doesn't want that, so smart of him to have this poll. Now, just to be clear, David Coletto and Abacus have done work for Bradford's campaign in 2023. They're friends. There is no official campaign right now, and Coletto said he did this poll on his own. As part of his regular polling, he added in a bunch of questions for residents of Toronto. So this is not an official Bradford poll, but it shows among decided voters, 39% would choose Olivia Chow, 38% would choose Bradford, and he has more room to grow. So smart of them to get that poll out there quickly to scare off anybody else from getting in the race. Because if Furey gets in and he takes 7-8%, even if it's that low, that helps elect Olivia Chow. If Michael Ford foolishly jumps in, that helps Olivia Chow. Here's my message to Michael Ford. You found it too stressful being a junior cabinet minister in a portfolio invented by your uncle, the premier, that you couldn't handle, and you had to take a leave of absence and then ultimately resign. Well, okay, you don't have what it takes to be mayor then. This is an incredibly stressful job. It's a 24/7 job. I've defended Mike Ford over the years for being someone who's hustled because he went from a young school board trustee to being city councilor to being an MPP, had a reputation for hustling, but he got put in a junior cabinet position and he crumbled under that. You can't do that and then say, but I want to be mayor of the biggest city in the country. Not going to happen.
Well, there's your political wrap for this week. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go to the TorontoSun.com where you'll find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.